St. Vincent musician.
Erin Annie Clark, better known by her stage name St. Vincent, is an American musician, singer-songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist. She began her music career as a member of the Polyphonic Spree and was also part of Sufjan Stevens' touring band before forming her own band in 2006. Clark currently resides in Manhattan. Her debut album was Marry Me, 2007, and was followed by Actor, 2009. Her third album, Strange Mercy, was released on September 13, 2011. On September 10, 2012, she released a collaborative album with David Byrne titled Love This Giant. Her fourth, self-titled album, St. Vincent, was released in the US on February 25, 2014. Clark has opened shows for such acts as Arcade Fire, Andrew Bird, Jolie Holland, John Vanderslice, Kshu, Death Cab for Cutie, Christina Donia and Grizzly Bear. She worked with Bon Iver on the song Roslyn, which appeared on the film soundtrack of the Twilight Saga, New Moon. Her track The Strangers was sampled by Kid Cudi on the song Maniac for his album Man on the Moon 2, The Legend of Mr. Rager along with rapper Cage.
Early life.
Annie Clark was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She began playing the guitar at the age of 12 and, as a teenager, worked as the tour manager for her uncle and aunt, Tuck Andrus and Patty Cathcart, of the guitar-vocal jazz duo Tuck and Patty. She grew up in Dallas, Texas, and attended Lake Highlands High School, where she participated in theater and the school's jazz band, and was a classmate of Mark Salling, who later went on to star in the series Glee. Clark graduated from Lake Highlands in 2001. Clark attended the Berklee College of Music for 3 years before dropping out. In retrospect, Clark said, "I think that with music school and art school, or school in any form, there has to be some system of grading and measurement. The things they can teach you are quantifiable. While all that is good and has its place, at some point you have to learn all you can and then forget everything that you learned in order to actually start making music." In 2003, during her time at Berklee, she released an EP with fellow students entitled Rats Live in a Vilstar. While in Berklee, she worked with Heavy Rotation Records where she revealed a much more private and intimate rendering of Count for Dorm Sessions Volume 1. Shortly after leaving Berklee, Clark returned home to Texas where she joined the Polyphonic Spree just before their embarking on a European tour. In 2004 she joined Glenn Branca's 100 Guitar Orchestra for the Queen's performance. Clark left the Polyphonic Spree and joined Sufjan Stevens' touring band in 2006, bringing with her a tour EP entitled Paris is Burning. It contains 3 tracks, including a cover version of Jackson Browne's These Days.
Career. St. Vincent and Marry Me 2007.
In 2006, Clark began recording a studio album, under the stage name St. Vincent. Her stage name is a reference to St. Vincent's Catholic Medical Center where the Welsh poet Dylan Thomas died in 1953. "It's the place where poetry comes to die," she has said. "That's me." The name is also a reference to her great-grandmother, whose middle name was St. Vincent. In an interview on The Colbert Report, she said that she took moniker from a Nick Cave song, which references the hospital where Dylan Thomas died. The reference is to the line, "And Dylan Thomas died drunk in Stone Vincent's Hospital" from Cave's song There She Goes My Beautiful World off the album Abattoir Blues The Lyre of Orpheus. Clark released her debut album, Marry Me on July 10, 2007 on Beggar's Banquet Records. Named after a line from the television show Arrested Development, the album features appearances from drummer Brian Teasley, Man or Astro Man, The Polyphonic Spree, Mike Garson, David Bowie's longtime pianist, and horn player Louis Schwadron, The Polyphonic Spree. The album was well received by critics, with Clark being compared to the likes of Kate Bush and David Bowie. Clark was lauded for the album's musical arrangements as well as themes and style. In their review of the album, The Avenue Club noted, "There's a point where too much happiness turns into madness, and St. Vincent's multi-instrumentalist Annie Clark knows this place well. Pitchfork said at every turn Marry Me takes the more challenging route of twisting already twisted structures and unusual instrumentation to make them sound perfectly natural and, most importantly, easy to listen to as she overdoes her thrillingly sui generis vision into vibrant life. The songs featured on Marry Me were largely written when Clark was 18 and 19 years old, and, according to Clark, represented a more idealized version of what life was or what love was or anything in the eyes of someone who hadn't really experienced anything. The album featured its one single, Paris is Burning, as well as a music video for Jesus Saves, I Spend. In 2008, Clark was nominated for 3 Plug Independent Music Awards, New Artist of the Year, Female Artist of the Year, and Music Video of the Year. On March 6, 2008, she won the Plug Female Artist of the Year award.
Actor 2009.
In 2008, after returning to New York from a lengthy tour, Clark began working on her second album. Her inspiration reportedly came from several films, including Disney movies. Well, the truth is that I had come back from a pretty long, about a year and a half of touring, and so my brain was sort of all circuit boards that were a little bit fried, Clark said. So I started watching films as sort of a way to get back into being human. And then it started to just really inform the entire record. Clark, who did not have a studio at the time, began writing the album in her apartment on her computer using GarageBand and MIDI, because she had been getting noise complaints from neighbors. The songs were largely inspired by scenes from various children's films. Clark has stated that she would imagine a soundtrack for certain scenes from films when constructing the music and lyrics, including scenes from Snow White, 1937, and The Wizard of Oz, 1939. The second album, entitled Actor, was released by 4AD Records on May 5, 2009. The album was also well received and gained more commercial attention than its predecessor. Spin gave the album 8 out of 10 stars, noting it's the cruel and the kind, and here, the Baroque arrangements are even more complex and her voice even prettier, with both only underlining the dark currents running through her songs. Entertainment Weekly said the album plays up the contrasts, letting her church choir voice linger on lyrics that hint darkly at themes of violence, sex, and general chaos, and branded the album a uniquely potent cocktail of sounds and moods. Actor charted well for an independent release, peaking at number 9 on Billboard's Independent Albums chart, and number 5 on the Tastemaker Albums chart. It peaked at number 90 on the Billboard 200. Although the album spawned no singles, except in the UK where Actor Out of Work was issued as a 7-vinyl single, music videos for Marrow and Actor Out of Work were released, and aired on several music channels. A promotional music video for Laughing with a Mouth of Blood, featuring Portlandia's Fred Armisen and Carrie Brownstein, then of Thunder Ant, was also filmed.
Strange Mercy 2011.
On January 12, 2011, according to her Twitter account, Clark stated that she was working on her third album, Strange Mercy, a follow-up to Actor. In early March, producer John Congleton, who also worked with Clark on Actor, commented that he and Clark were nearly a third of the way through recording the new release. On July 4, Clark stated via Twitter that if enough followers tweeted the hashtag #StrangeMercy, she would release a track from the album. On July 22, after the threshold was met, she released Surgeon for download and streaming on her official website. In August 2011, Clark was interviewed and featured on the cover of Spin magazine. On August 24, 2011, a music video was released for the song Cruel, and on September 5, the entire album was put up for streaming on NPR Music. On August 25, 2011, she debuted Strange Mercy in the Temple of Dender Room at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, New York, introducing Toko Yasuda, Exxon, Matt Johnson, and Daniel Mintzris to her live band. The album was released on September 13, 2011. Strange Mercy received widespread acclaim from music critics. The album achieved an overall rating of 8.1/10 at Any Decent Music. based on 36 reviews. The album was St. Vincent's highest charting album yet, peaking at number 19 on the US Billboard 200. Regarding the album, Annie Clark has stated, "I don't think it's the best record I'll ever make, but I think it's a good record." Clark began touring the US and Europe in support of the record in the fall of 2011, and is continuing a worldwide tour throughout 2012.
St. Vincent 2013-present.
On November 18, 2013, Clark announced dates for a European tour in 2014 via her website. The following day, Republic Records announced that Clark had signed to their label. Her fourth album, St. Vincent, was released on February 25, 2014. On December 9, 2013, Clark released the album's first single, Birth in Reverse, for digital streaming. The second single, Digital Witness, was released for digital streaming on January 6. The album was released on February 25 to critical acclaim.
Other work.
In 2011, Clark composed Proven Badlands, an instrumental piece based on the sequel, from her sophomore release Actor, for Ensemble Y Music's album Beautiful Mechanical. In 2012, Clark featured on Andrew Bird's album Break It Yourself singing on Lusitania. On June 14, 2012, Who, the first single from her collaboration with David Byrne, formerly of Talking Heads, was released. The single comes from their album Love This Giant, which was released on September 11, 2012. On September 18, 2012, Clark participated in the 30 Songs/30 Days campaign to support Half the Sky, Turning Oppression into Opportunity for Women Worldwide, a multi-platform media project inspired by Nicholas Kristof and Sheryl WuDunn's best-selling book. Clark also provided guest vocals for the song, What's the Use of Woundrin' on the album Who Killed Amanda Palmer from Amanda Palmer, formerly of the Dresden Dolls. Clark appeared on the film soundtrack of The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn, Part 2. On May 28, 2013, David Byrne and St. Vincent released Brass Tactics, which includes a previously unreleased Love This Giant bonus track, 2 remixes, and 2 live tracks. St. Vincent was the 2013 recipient of the Smithsonian Magazine American Ingenuity Awards in Performing Arts. On April 10, 2014, Clark fronted Nirvana to perform Lithium at the 29th Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Clark's vocals will be featured on Swan's upcoming album To Be Kind, which will be released on May 13, 2014.
Musical style.
Clark's music has been noted for its wide array of instruments and complex arrangements, as well as its polysemous lyrics, which have been described as teetering between happiness and madness. In response to this, Clark has said, "I like when things come out of nowhere and blindside you a little bit. I think any person who gets panic attacks or has an anxiety disorder can understand how things can all of a sudden turn very quickly. I think I'm sublimating that into the music." In addition to guitar, Clark also plays bass, piano, organ and theremin. Her music also often features violins, cellos, flutes, trumpets, clarinets and other instruments. Her unorthodox musical style has been characterized by critics as a mixture of chamber rock, pop, indie rock, and cabaret jazz. As of late 2011, her electric guitar pedal board included the following: Korg Pitch Black, dBA Interstellar Overdrive Supreme, Zvex Mastron Fuzz, Eventide Pitch Factor, Eventide Space, Boss PS5 Super Shifter, Moog EP2 Expression Pedal. All her pedals are controlled by a Mastermind MIDI foot controller. She frequently plays a 1967 Harmony H17 Bobcat electric guitar.
Personal life.
A 2014 Village Voice profile of Clark describes her as a private person. Former Talking Heads member David Byrne, with whom Clark toured, says, "Despite having toured with her for almost a year, I don't think I know her much better, at least not on a personal level. Mystery is not a bad thing for a beautiful, talented young woman, or man, to embrace. And she does it without seeming to be standoffish or distant."
Discography.
Rats Live in a Ville Star, 2003, Paris is Burning, 2006, 4AD Session, 2012, Brass Tactics, with David Byrne, 2013, Jesus Saves, I Spend/These Days, 2007, CD, 7 vinyl, Now/All My Stars Aligned, 2007, CD, 7 vinyl, Actor Out of Work/Bicycle, 2009, 7 vinyl, Marrow/Oh My God, 2009, digital, promo CD, Surgeon, 2011, digital promo, Cruel, 2011, digital promo, Cheerleader/Cheerleader, acoustic, 2012, iTunes single, Crocodile/Grot, 2012, Red Vinyl 7 for Record Store Day, Who, 2012, digital, with David Byrne, digital Witness/Birth in Reverse, 2014, digital, Gold Triangle 12 vinyl, digital Witness/Del Rio, 2014, 7 vinyl, The Antidote The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn, Part 2 soundtrack, 2012, Early Autumn Gangster Squad, music from and inspired by the motion picture, 2013, Make Believe Boardwalk Empire Volume 2, music from the HBO original series, 2013.